and Jake. The Bible is jaded and most of it taken, so get educated with Hugo and Jake. Pull up you and stop what you're doing, it's Bible reloaded time. They call it debated, the theists will hate it. I'm talking to taken, but it's Hugo and Jake. So I'm with the show then, it's not candy coated, it's the Bible reloaded with Hugo and Jake. With Hugo and Jake.
Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake, and he is Dawah Man.
And this is the Qur'an Reloaded. Today we're actually doing something that we've never done before. We're doing sort of a response video to, this one's a little old, but it's sort of bad Muslim apologetics. And we've never done a response video before, but this one deserves it. And it's been done before, but I wanted to talk about it now, and so did Jake.
Yeah, at the time when this came out, we stayed away from response videos, and the only reason we're doing them is because with the Qur'an Reloaded, there are so many extremely entertaining Muslim apologists, whereas the Christian apologists just kind of make you sad, like Ken Ham. Mm-hmm. But these ones are always, they're so creative, and the worst. And this one is probably one of the most infamous ones. This is Dawah Man's, we'll just call it Dad Cum. You know what it is already. It's the Dad Cum guy.
So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out what this guy has to say about drinking cum. And let me tell you, I'm an expert, so I will notice if he's wrong.
Got my notepad out already.
So the video, as all of his videos do, starts out with this sort of intro, and it's kind of weird. It sounds like it should be set to a beat, but it isn't, so it just sounds cheap and bad. At the very least, he could have done a beatboxing thing. I'll fucking do it for him.
We stand firm, calling to Allah all the time.
Yeah,
we let
that's good.
them know,
Word.
bang, bang, cause it's Dawah time.
As pretty much as good as our intro is, that's as bad as Dawah Man's is. So it opens up, and there's this guy, and he's looking for a snack, and he chooses his dad's cum. But if you look closely, he already had a bottle of open cum. I hate that. You finish the one that you opened, and then you can drink the fresh bottle of your dad's cum. Do you think it's easy for a man to fill a standard-sized water bottle with their seed? It isn't. And let me tell you, it's not just a volume thing, but it's also a logistical one. You gotta aim right into it. If you use a funnel, you're cheating. And you'll notice, this smiley face leads me to believe that this is a treat his dad gives him from time to time. Kind of like when mom would pack you a lunch and write a cute little note in it, like, I love you, Pookie. Even though your birth sounded the death toll of my personal goals and freedom. Have a good day. Love, Mom.
So he's looking at his bottle of the dad's cum. Frankly, honestly, if the dad's gonna do this as a label, he should probably get a professional printing machine. I don't know. It seems like this is a business venture he's starting. But anyway, this sort of Terminator-esque screen comes up, but if the Terminator was more focused on John Connor's cum, and it gives the nutritional info, and I don't want to nitpick, but it says that the calories per serving, and it has as a serving a load, by the way, which is a very technical term for cum, a load. It says 0.7 calories per load. Incorrect. One load of cum is 5 calories. I don't know what kind of weird Diet Coke cum this guy's dad has, but I want some. I'm watching my figure.
And here we can see an egregious mistake. Notice how the sedimentary layer of cum has settled at the bottom, while the rest of the seminal fluid has risen to the top. For the viewers, if you'd like to enjoy dad cum, please remember to shake the bottle first. That's why here we have this cluster of phlegm-like spunk near the mouth. Know your cum, kids.
I also don't really approve of the glass he's using. I'm more of a long stem cum drinker, or at the worst, a brandy glass.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Why on earth do you look so grossed out for?
Because he didn't shake the bottle of cum in order to evenly distribute the cum chunks. We've already talked about this.
On atheism, there's nothing wrong with drinking your dad's sperm.
Alright, so before we even get into what he's actually talking about, I need to point out the fact that he is in fact conflating something that's gross with something that is immoral. Drinking cum, even if it is your dad's, not really immoral. You're not hurting anyone. Again, he's going to do this through the whole thing, so I just think you need to point out drinking cum, not evil, just nasty.
You don't believe me? Look, let's break it down. There is no consequences, morally speaking, according to you guys, because not harming anyone and there's no risk.
There really isn't harm or risk unless the dad has an STI. If he does, I would definitely stay away from whatever is excreted from his nuts.
And secondly speaking, sperm's got nutritional value.
I mean, if we ate everything that had any nutritional value whatsoever, that'd open up a whole new world of travel cooking shows. Today on Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, he's gonna lick a dude's armpit.
So go drink your dad's sperm, man. What are you waiting for? But you're not going to, are you?
You don't know me.
Hold up, you feel like, that's gross, I don't want to drink my dad's sperm? Then could there be something wrong with your worldview?
So again, he's conflating aversion with morality, which isn't even the worst part about this. The worst part is that he learned shitty After Effects and he thinks that this makes him a legitimate YouTuber.
Let's discuss that.
Or I could be a heterosexual man that's not into incest. I'm sure there's ladies out there that totally want to drink my dad's cum. You can find most of them in crack houses or on redtube.com.
Okay, so we have morals. We have good, we have bad. We have what we ought to do, we have what we ought not to do. Where did our morals come from? They didn't come from nothing, did they?
I'm going to stop right here and talk about what he's doing and preface what he's about to say, because he's stating his position as if it's already a fact and painting the argument as if it's either our morals come from literally nothing, creation ex nihilo, or it must be Allah. This is not the argument we're having. I want to talk about dad cum.
Because look, we're smart now. We're not going to behave stupid anymore. We're going to appreciate that things don't come from nothing.
Except probably the entirety of existence. But nothing important. Please continue.
Okay, what are the explanations that atheists used to give for where our morals came from?
Also notice that he uses the past tense used to imply that he has already won the argument, which means that if he already genuinely thinks he's won and that there is no discussion to be had, he just really enjoys thinking about drinking his dad's cum. I don't blame him. I've met his dad. He's got that rugged sheep herder look going for him.
Number one, evolution. But then we came to realize, just by using our brains a teeny tiny bit, that evolution doesn't care.
First of all, I'm just impressed that he was able to use his brain even a teeny bit based on the arguments that he is formulating. Secondly, I'd like to point out that often moral value and survival value, at least for a social species, are the same thing. I understand what he's trying to get at. He's saying that morals don't necessarily have a bearing on whether or not you can reproduce. But that's blatantly false. If you live as a human being, you understand that as a species we cooperate, and that helps us. Not only that, but if you've ever read anything by Richard Dawkins, for instance, The Selfish Gene, there are plenty of explanations for why morals and being altruistic can benefit our gene pool in general. So, before you try and claim you used your brain a teeny bit, maybe try and use it a little bit more and you'll come to more reasonable conclusions.
About moral value, it cares about survival value. For example,
So he's pretty much right about evolution here. Things that are capable of survival and thus reproduction do indeed live on. However, that's not what evolution wants. It doesn't necessarily want anything. It's like saying gravity wants your dad's thicker cum chunks to settle at the bottom of the bottle.
the white nurse shark, when it wants to procreate, does it go and smoothly just walk over to the female white nurse shark and just chirps it a little bit like, what's going on, baby? You want to hit the pad and basically get jiggy? No! It forcefully copulates. In other words, it rapes.
As for the rape sharks, I think you're trying to show the immorality of evolution, but have you seen a shark dick? They've got two, and they're called claspers. Sometimes the shark misses entirely and just stabs them blindly into the lady shark. To be fair, these dudes also killed Samuel L. Jackson once, so I think they've earned the right to blindly stab their junk into the abdomens of their women.
I for one hope that sharks continue to rape each other and never form a coalition of the willing, because if they do, then we will be the targets of their barbed, scary shark dicks.
If that's where our morals come from, rape, murder, theft, all these things, at the most you could say are socially unconventional. The same way it is socially unconventional for a woman to wear Ronald McDonald lipstick when she goes to the club, or for a man to sit at a dinner table and fart, or for a guy to go play a game of football with his tuxedo on. You can't say these things are evil, they're wrong.
I genuinely have no idea where he's getting the idea that if morals are not absolute, then we cannot believe our moral system is the correct one. At its heart, a moral system is sort of a belief system. It's what you believe is right or wrong, and it's what guides you in your day-to-day life. So for the same reason I can say I believe my morals are correct over yours, for the same reason that I say I don't believe there is a God, but I understand that you do. I'm not going around saying I don't believe there is a God, therefore you also must not believe. I don't believe that you believe that. That's basically what you're saying. You're saying that you don't believe that other people have other beliefs other than you. The fact that we're having this discussion proves you wrong. Again, I just wanted to talk about dad cum.
The second explanation that we have is, wait for it, social pressure. But social pressure basically means that we believe things are good and bad, morally speaking, on the basis of what society tells us.
What he's talking about here is basically moral relativism, where a thing is either moral or immoral based upon the audience that is viewing or doing the thing. Well, that's just how people work. Take, for instance, modern American television. Jessica Jones didn't have gratuitous nudity, but it did have a lot of sex, booze, swearing, and all the other stuff. In a Muslim country, or even some areas of America where Christianity is very strict, this is viewed as immoral. In my house, we watch it while enjoying bottles of dad cum. Netflix night makes me so bad.
But if that's the case, then that means you have to accept that when Hitler and his Nazis were doing what they were doing to the Jews, in other words, putting them in concentration camps, gas chambers with Zyklon B, when they were doing that at the time, because social pressure made them feel that it was the norm, morally speaking, it was the thing that they ought to do.
Firstly, I'd like to point out that I think that you're just bad-mouthing Hitler because he's the only person who was able to competently hate Jews more than Muslims do. Secondly, if Hitler had won the war and the entire world was run by Nazis, I have a pretty good feeling that people would be kind of more okay with what he did to the Jews. If you'd like example of this, see what the Americans did to the actual Native Americans. Thirdly, when you're talking about society imposing its morals on other people, I would like to point out that even though the Nazis weren't really cool with the Jews, the global society as a whole did sort of think that plenty of what Hitler did was doing wrong, and they put quite a bit of social pressure on him to stop. And by social pressure, I mean World War II.
So what's the explanation that people like Sam Harris put forth today? Consequentialism. What is consequentialism? A very crude understanding is that basically we look at the consequences of our actions, and if the consequences bring about good, then that's something that's morally good. And if they bring about something bad, then that's morally bad. So that's basically how we do it.
Okay, so consequentialism. Here's the thing. I wasn't aware that all atheists were necessarily consequentialists. I'm not. But the thing is, it's a much more complex philosophical concept than you put it here. Even you say it's a very bullshit explanation you're giving, and you're correct. At least in your own video, you're willing to admit that your own bullshit is bullshit.
It's also important to remember that Sam Harris is a neuroscientist, and you are Dawah man.
Well, in light of that, there's nothing wrong with drinking your dad's sperm.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with you if you have this weird agreement with your dad in which he'll shoot his load into the open mouth of a recently used water bottle in an attempt to quench your thirst for semen. Maybe it's like a Dexter thing, where the dad is protecting the rest of the population from the deviant son he created, only to die and find out years later that he'll be sucking off criminals in back alleys and collecting their spunk in bottles, only for that series to just sort of peter out, leaving most of the viewers unsatisfied and everyone with a bad taste in their mouth.
Lumberjack, cum Dexter.
So go and drink your dad's sperm. Don't be such a hypocrite. Go and basically have intimate relationships with your mom and your sister.
Alright, so he's saying that if you're an atheist or a consequentialist, you see no problem with fucking your mother or your sister. But here's the thing. I'm not even necessarily a consequentialist, but let's look at it from that perspective. When you're looking at the function and makeup of a family system, the utility of a family is that there is a support structure that is always there. Sex, on the other hand, often complicates social relationships, and when things don't work out, it creates what we call exes. And if you have exes, you know how awkward it is. Can you imagine a family reunion if it was full of your crazy exes who stabbed you in the face? That's what that would be like, and that's why we don't fuck our moms and sisters. Also, your mom's gross.
Because there's nothing wrong with it. That's why people like Lawrence Krauss said, rationally speaking, I don't see something wrong with incest.
Why is incest wrong? It's not clear to me that it's wrong.
However, I do agree with Krauss that sometimes your mom is just too hot to not try to fuck.
Go and basically engage in pedophilic acts. That's why Richard Dawkins says, I don't see there to be a problem with things like mild pedophilia.
But here's Dawkins in context of that. Dawkins went on to say that one of his former schoolmasters, quote, pulled me on his knee and put his hand inside my shorts. And to condemn this mild touching up as sexual abuse today would somehow be unfair. He continues, I am very conscious that you can't condemn people of an earlier era by the standards of ours, just as we don't look back at the 18th and 19th centuries and condemn people for racism in the same way that we could condemn a modern person for racism. I look back a few decades to my childhood and see things like caning, mild pedophilia, and can't find it in me to condemn it by the same standards as I or anyone would today, he said. I can understand what he's saying, but please don't touch a student's tallywhacker, teach.
So, Dawah Man has taken Richard Dawkins' own personal experience with being molested and used it against him. Now, I don't totally agree with what Richard Dawkins said. I think there are some things that even by the basis of other eras are considered pretty fucked up. But clearly this is something that he has come to terms with in order to deal with his own issues, and he's talking about it in past tense. He's not saying go touch kids now. He's saying that he thinks that back then it wasn't as big of a deal. Again, we can debate that all you want, but he's not saying it's okay to go touch kids today or ever, really. He's just saying, I kinda got over it.
On consequentialism, according to Sam Harris's morality, according to Professor Krauss, Richard Dawkins, the leading atheists of the world, according to their morality, there's nothing wrong with you basically lying a 1-year-old baby in front of you and basically masturbating over it. Because the baby is not going to remember the traumatic experience because he's only 1 or she's only 1 year old.
Don't jack off onto babies. They can get diseases, they can have allergic reactions, but most importantly, babies, they're not sexy. It's like they don't even try.
The biggest issue with the baby jerk-off metaphor is that consent is a thing. What makes something immoral when you're talking about sexual depravity or sexual assault is often, if not always, an issue of consent. The default is you don't have sex or jerk off onto anything that hasn't expressly informed you that that is okay. Same reason you don't jerk off onto your dog, at least not until you put peanut butter over your nuts, and then once they lick it, I think that's affirmative consent. But the babies aren't into peanut butter. Don't give babies peanut butter, they might be allergic. Also, don't come on babies.
We have the same morality. So I'm not having a go at you. I'm just trying to make you understand how crude this understanding of the world is from an atheistic perspective.
Empiricism is sensory in nature, so there's literally no fucking way you could have reached this conclusion via empiricism. Why the fuck is this in your empiricism category, Dawah Man? Now I find it hard to take your word on the whole dadcum thing.
Because society doesn't dictate them, evolution sure as hell doesn't, and consequences of our actions, rational thought process like that sure as hell doesn't. The only option we're left is that Allah instilled these morals inside of us from when we were born.
So Dawah Man has basically decided that since he has completely destroyed any sense of atheist morality, he didn't. That Allah is clearly the answer. However, I don't think anyone told him, A, that other religions exist, and B, just because I am wrong doesn't make your supposition necessarily right. Which isn't even the case, because again, he didn't prove me wrong. If he proved me wrong, I'll drink a big old glass of dad cum. Anyone's dad. And that includes Jake Busey's dad. Who is Gary Busey?
I leave you with that. Please. Accept Allah as your one creator, master of the heavens and the earth. Or at least come to appreciate that there is a divine there. That's half the job done already.
So that's the end of the video. I'm not convinced. It's also strange still that he conflated being grossed out by something and it being socially frowned upon with immorality. Because I don't think there are many people who would say straight up drinking cum is just evil. Just nasty.
Yeah, I mean, some people are totally into that, whatever, live your life. And if, you want to drink dad cum, that's just your brothers and sisters, man. That's just your brothers and sisters. It's fine.
So if you have any videos you want us to respond to, please link us to them in the comments, or at the very least tell us the name of it or whatever if it doesn't let you. I don't know how spam filters work. You can always check us out on Twitter at Bible Reloaded.
You can follow Hugo at Hugo Reloaded, and you could also subscribe and get more of our videos every Monday, normally at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
You can also donate to our Patreon campaign. We do a once-a-month patron-only hangout, and that's a lot of fun. We get to hang out and talk to you guys, read a Christian comic book. Of course, that's because we also do the Bible Reloaded, which is where we do this kind of stuff, but on Christianity.
Yeah, if you haven't run into the Bible Reloaded, that was weird, but good for you. Come on over there as well. We do more stuff over there.
So, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake, and he is Dawah Man. Look at him. He's like a Muslim youth pastor.
And this has been the Qur'an Reloaded. And here's to you, Dawah Man.
You drinking cum? Hugo, are you drinking cum?
Ugh. That was heavier than I expected, but not as heavy as I hoped.